Sometimes the most profound connections in our lives remain hidden until an unexpected moment brings them into the light. What happened when paramedic David Chen stood at the Family Feud podium would reveal a decade-old secret that would leave Steve Harvey speechless, demonstrate the extraordinary ways our lives intersect without our knowledge, and remind millions of viewers that every act of kindness creates ripples we may never fully comprehend. Before we explore this remarkable story of fate, heroism, and the invisible threads that connect us all, please subscribe to our channel and activate notifications. This story will change how you think about every stranger you meet and every small act of service you perform. The Chen family from Seattle, Washington, had arrived at the Family Feud studio in April 2024 for what they believed would be a regular taping. David Chen, a 42-year-old paramedic with Seattle Fire Department, served as team captain alongside his wife Marie, a pediatric nurse, his brother James, a high school science teacher, his sister Lisa, an accountant, and his mother Grace, a retired librarian who had immigrated from Taiwan 45 years earlier. David had been reluctant to apply for the show. As someone who spent his days saving lives and dealing with medical emergencies, he found it difficult to get excited about a game show. However, his family had insisted, particularly his mother Grace, who had watched Family Feud religiously since learning English through American television programs in the 1970 seconds. For her 70th birthday, the family had surprised her with the acceptance letter from the show's producers. The Chens were competing against the Williams family from Atlanta, a vibrant group of educators and entrepreneurs who brought infectious energy to the studio. The atmosphere was light and celebratory, with both families exchanging warm greetings before the taping began. David carried himself with the quiet confidence of someone accustomed to high-pressure situations. His paramedic uniform badge, which he wore as a pin on his jacket for good luck, caught the studio lights. He had been with Seattle Fire for 18 years, having joined shortly after completing his paramedic certification. His colleagues had given him the nickname Ghost because of his ability to appear exactly when needed most, seemingly materializing at critical moments during emergencies. Steve Harvey entered the studio with his characteristic energy, immediately putting both families at ease with his warm-up routine. He had been hosting Family Feud for over a decade, but he approached each show with genuine enthusiasm, knowing that for many families, this appearance represented a lifetime dream. The game progressed with both families displaying impressive knowledge and quick thinking. The Chens had taken an early lead with strong showings in rounds about household items and daily routines, while the Williams family had excelled in ISO categories about entertainment and pop culture. During the third round, something unusual occurred. The question was about common reasons people call 911. David, given his profession, should have dominated this category. But he seemed distracted. He kept glancing at Steve Harvey with a peculiar expression, as though trying to place something familiar. His family noticed his distraction but attributed it to the pressure of the game. When David finally buzzed in with heart attack as his answer, Steve made a casual comment that would prove more significant than anyone realized. Heart attack. Yeah, that's a scary one. I actually had a close call myself about 10 years ago. Grateful to still be here. The comment passed quickly as the game continued. But David's expression had changed. His eyes widened slightly, and he seemed to be calculating something in his mind. The Chens ultimately won the main game with a score of 312 points, earning the right to play fast money for $20,000. As the family huddled to decide who would participate, David volunteered to go second, which surprised his family since he typically preferred to go first in any competitive situation. His mother Grace would go first, fulfilling her dream of participating in the fast money round she had watched countless times from her living room. Grace performed admirably, scoring 156 points despite her nervousness. This meant David needed just 44 points to win the $20,000 prize. As he walked to the podium, his paramedic pin caught the light again, and Steve Harvey noticed it for the first time. "I see you're a paramedic, David," Steve commented while they set up for the round. "Thank you for your service, man. You guys are real heroes." David nodded, his expression serious. "We just do what we're trained to do, Mr. Harvey. Sometimes we're fortunate enough to be in the right place at the right time." The phrase hung in the air for a moment before Steve continued with the game setup. "All right, David. Your mother got you 156 points. You need just 44 more for $20,000. That should be easy for someone who stays cool under pressure, right?" David placed his hands on the podium, and for a moment, his professional composure seemed to waver. "Mr. Intentions." David placed his tension. "Harvey, before we start, can I ask you something? You mentioned having a heart issue about 10 years ago. Was that in Los Angeles, by any chance? November 2014? Steve's expression shifted from his usual jovial demeanor to confusion. "Yeah, actually, it was. How did you?" He paused, studying David more carefully. David reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, worn piece of paper. "Mr. Harvey, I need you to know something. I wasn't always with Seattle Fire. 10 years ago, I was working with Los Angeles County Fire Department. On the 15th of November 2014, at 2:47 a.m., we received a call about a man experiencing severe chest pain at the Beverly Hills Hotel." Steve's face had gone pale. The studio audience was completely silent, sensing they were witnessing something extraordinary. The producers were gesturing frantically, unsure whether to stop filming or continue capturing what was clearly an unscripted moment. David continued, his voice steady but emotional. "The patient was having a widowmaker heart attack, a complete blockage of the left anterior descending artery. We had maybe minutes to act. I performed emergency procedures in the ambulance while my partner drove. The patient kept saying he had to survive because he had shows to tape, a family to provide for, and work that wasn't finished." Steve Harvey stood frozen, his hand gripping the podium for support. His eyes were filling with tears as the memory flooded back. "That patient's name was Broderick Stephen Harvey," David said, his own voice now thick with emotion. "You probably don't remember me, Mr. Harvey. You were in and out of consciousness. But I rode with you all the way to Cedars-Sinai. I stayed until you were stable. For more Menester. I monded Endicon. I even came back the next day to check on you. But your family said you were sleeping." The revelation hung in the air like electricity. Steve Harvey, the man known for his quick wit and endless words, was completely speechless. The camera captured as recognition dawned on his face, followed by an overwhelming wave of emotion.
"You.
Steve's voice cracked.
You're the paramedic who—"
"Oh my God." He stepped away from his podium and walked toward David, his movements slow and deliberate, as though afraid the moment might shatter if he moved too quickly. David met him halfway, and what followed was not the typical professional handshake or brief hug common on game shows. Steve Harvey embraced David Chen with the intensity of someone holding on to life itself. The two men stood there, locked in an embrace that transcended the usual boundaries of host and contestant, becoming instead two human beings, connected by the most profound experience possible: the saving and receiving of life. When they finally separated, both men were openly crying. The studio audience was on their feet, many wiping away their own tears. The Chen family stood in stunned amazement, while Grace Chen clasped her hands together in a prayer position, understanding the magnitude of what was unfolding. Steve Harvey took several moments to compose himself before addressing the audience and cameras. His voice was unsteady, but determined. "Ladies and gentlemen, I need you to understand what just happened here. 10 years ago, I had what doctors call a widowmaker heart attack. The survival rate is less than 12%. I was technically dead for 2 minutes in that ambulance." He turned to David, placing a hand on his shoulder. "This man, David Chen, brought me back. He saved my life. I never knew his name. In the chaos and recovery, I never got to properly thank him. The hospital said the paramedic team had already left for another call by the time I was conscious enough to ask about them." David spoke up, his professional demeanor returning slightly. "Mr. Harvey, I need you to know something. In 18 years as a paramedic, I've responded to thousands of calls. But I've never forgotten that night. Not because I knew who you were. Honestly, in the ambulance, you were just another human being fighting to survive. I remembered it because of what you kept saying. Steve wiped his eyes, encouraging David to continue. You kept saying, "I'm not finished yet. God's not finished with me yet. I have more to give." You said it over and over. It stuck with me, because most patients in your condition are either unconscious or focused on their pain. But you were focused on your purpose. That's what I think pulled you through. That determination that you had more to give the world. Steve's production team had made the decision to keep filming, recognizing they were capturing something far more valuable than a game show. The director would later say, it was the most important footage they had ever recorded. David, Steve said, his voice growing stronger. For 10 years, I've wondered about the person who saved my life. I've told the story in churches, in speeches, in private conversations. I've always said that God sent an angel to save me that night. I just never knew that angel's name. He turned to address the Chen family. Your husband, your son, your brother. He didn't just save my life. He made it possible for me to see my children graduate, to walk my daughter down the aisle, to continue doing work that I hope makes a difference. Every laugh I've shared, every moment of joy, every opportunity to help others, it all exists because of what David did that night. Grace Chen stepped forward, her small frame radiating dignity. Mr. Harvey, in our culture, we believe that saving a life creates an eternal bond. David never told us this story. We knew he had saved many lives in Los Angeles before moving to Seattle, but he never speaks of individual cases. He believes that's part of the sacred trust of his profession. Steve nodded, understanding the profound humility in David's silence. You know what? We're going to finish this fast money round, because that's what we're here to do. But David, I want you to know that whatever happens with this game, your life is about to change. They returned to their positions, and the atmosphere in the studio was electric with emotion. Steve had to take several breaths before continuing. All right, David Chen, the man who saved my life, needs 44 points for $20,000. But you know what? This game just became about something much bigger than money. David placed his hands back on the podium, his composure remarkable, given what had just transpired. Let's do this, Mr. Harvey. But for the record, you saved yourself that night. I just helped keep the engine running while your will to live did the real work. The fast money round proceeded with an almost surreal quality. The questions seemed insignificant compared to what had just been revealed. But both men maintained their professionalism. Name something people thank God for. Their health? David answered without hesitation. How many hours of training does a professional need? 1,000 hours. Name something that connects people. David paused, looking directly at Steve. Shared experiences. What age do people start thinking about legacy? 50. Name something that makes life worth living. Second chances. When Steve revealed the answers, each one seemed to carry additional weight, given the context. Health was the number 2 answer with 23 points. 1,000 hours received 8 points. Shared experiences earned 18 points. 50 garnered 24 points. Second chances, remarkably, was the number 1 answer with 31 points, bringing their total to 260 points. The Chen family had won the $20,000, but the victory felt secondary to what had just occurred. Steve Harvey did something unprecedented in the show's history. He stopped the regular programming to make an announcement. I'm going to do something we've never done before, Steve declared. This $20,000 prize is yours. Chen family, you earned it. But I'm personally going to match it. David, the work you do, the lives you save, including mine, deserves recognition. I'm also going to make a donation to the Seattle Fire Department's Emergency Medical Services program in your name. But Steve wasn't finished. And there's something else. David, You mentioned you remembered that night because I kept talking about having more to give. Well, I want you to know what your work made possible. The Steve and Marjorie Harvey Foundation has provided scholarships to over 500 young men and women since that night. We've built community centers, funded educational programs, and changed lives. None of that happens without you. The impact of this Family Feud episode extended far beyond anything anyone could have anticipated. When it aired 2 weeks later, the moment when David revealed his identity to Steve became one of the most watched clips in television history, garnering over 100 million views across various platforms within the first week. But the story's significance went deeper than viral fame. The episode sparked a national conversation about the invisible heroes among us, the paramedics, emergency medical technicians, nurses, and other first responders who save lives daily without recognition or fanfare. Steve Harvey used his platform to launch a campaign called Finding Angels, dedicated to reuniting survivors with the first responders who saved them. David Chen, who had spent his career avoiding the spotlight, found himself thrust into national attention. Rather than shrinking from it, he embraced the opportunity to advocate for emergency medical services. He testified before Congress about the need for better funding and support for paramedic programs, using his story with Steve Harvey to illustrate the profound impact that emergency responders have on individuals and society. The Seattle Fire Department experienced an unprecedented surge in applications for their paramedic training program. Young people who watched the episode were inspired by David's combination of humility, skill, and dedication. The department created the Chen Protocol, a training module that emphasized not just the technical aspects of emergency medicine, but also the human connection that can make the difference between life and death. Steve Harvey transformed his experience into action. He established the Second Chance Foundation, specifically designed to support first responders and their families. The foundation provided scholarships for children of paramedics and EMTs, funded advanced training programs, and created a mental health support system for first responders dealing with the trauma of their work. The revelation also led to a beautiful personal friendship between the Harvey and Chen families. Steve flew the entire Chen family to his ranch in Texas for Thanksgiving, where they shared stories and traditions. Grace Chen taught Marjorie Harvey how to make traditional Taiwanese dishes, while Steve learned that David had actually been inspired to become a paramedic after losing his father to a heart attack when he was 16, unable to help because he didn't know CPR. Medical schools and paramedic training programs began using the footage from the episode as a teaching tool, not for medical procedures, but for understanding the profound responsibility and privilege of saving lives. David's words about Steve fighting to survive because he felt he had more to give became a case study in the psychology of survival and the will to live. 6 months after the episode aired, Steve Harvey hosted a special primetime event called The Night That Changed Everything, which brought together dozens of survivors and the first responders who had saved them. David Chen co-hosted the event, sharing the stage with the man whose life he had saved. The program raised over $10. They Fland said, "When they said win dashins, don't forget to stay $10 million for emergency medical services across the country." The story revealed during the Family Feud taping also led to important policy changes. Several states passed legislation improving pay and benefits for paramedics and EMTs, with lawmakers citing the Steve Harvey-David Chen story as evidence of these professionals' invaluable contribution to society. The Chen-Harvey Act in Washington state established the nation's first comprehensive mental health support program for first responders. David returned to his work in Seattle, but his life had fundamentally changed. He became a sought-after speaker at medical conferences, sharing not technical knowledge, but wisdom about the human side of emergency medicine. His message was consistent. Every patient is someone's loved one, someone with unfinished business, someone who deserves not just medical treatment, but hope. The $40,000 the Chen family received, the prize money plus Steve's personal match, was used to establish a scholarship fund at the University of Washington's paramedic program. The fund specifically supported students from underserved communities who wanted to enter emergency medicine. Grace Chen insisted it be called the Second Chance Scholarship, honoring both her son's life-saving work and Steve Harvey's second chance at life. A year after the episode, documentary filmmaker Ken Burns approached both families about creating a film exploring the intersection of fate, purpose, and service. The resulting documentary, The Angel You Never Knew, premiered at Sundance and went on to win an Academy Award. It used the Harvey Chen story as a lens to examine the millions of life-saving interventions that happen annually, most of which never receive recognition. The documentary revealed something that hadn't been discussed during the Family Feud episode. On the night David saved Steve Harvey's life, David had actually been off duty. He was driving home from a late dinner when he heard the call come over his radio. Something made him respond, even though other units were already dispatched. That decision, to answer a call he wasn't required to answer, had changed the trajectory of countless lives. Steve Harvey reflected on this during the documentary. David didn't have to be there that night. He chose to be there. That's the difference between a job and a calling. He didn't see a celebrity having a heart attack. He saw a human being who needed help. That's why I'm alive today. The documentary also explored the ripple effects of that single saved life. Researchers calculated that Steve Harvey's survival had directly impacted over 10,000 lives through his foundation's work, his television shows that provided opportunities for families, and his motivational speaking that had inspired countless individuals to pursue their dreams. Each of those impacts could be traced back to David Chen's decision to answer that call. 3 years after the Family Feud episode, David received the Presidential Medal of Freedom, the nation's highest civilian honor. Steve Harvey presented the medal, telling the assembled dignitaries, "This man represents the best of America. Not because he saved a celebrity. He didn't even know who I was. But because he represents the thousands of first responders who wake up every day ready to save strangers, to run toward danger when others run away, to be the difference between tragedy and hope." In his acceptance speech, David said something that encapsulated the entire journey. Mr. Harvey likes to say, "I saved his life." But the truth is, we saved each other. His survival gave meaning to my work. His recovery validated every hard night, every lost patient, every moment of doubt. And his friendship has shown me that sometimes the universe arranges for us to be exactly where we need to be, exactly when we need to be there. The Family Feud episode became required viewing at paramedic and EMT training programs across the country, not for its medical content, but for its demonstration of the sacred bond between those who save lives and those whose lives are saved. It showed that heroism isn't always dramatic or visible. Sometimes, it's a trained professional doing their job, with skill and compassion. At 2:47 in the morning, the Chen and Harvey families continued their friendship, meeting annually to celebrate what they called Second Chance Day on November 15th. These gatherings grew to include other families touched by the story, creating a community of survivors and first responders who understood the precious gift of continued life. David's mother, Grace, whose dream of appearing on Family Feud had started this entire journey, became an unexpected spokesperson for immigrant families' contributions to American society. She spoke eloquently about how her son, the child of immigrants, had saved one of America's most recognizable faces, demonstrating that service to community transcends all boundaries of origin or background. This extraordinary revelation on Family Feud reminds us that we are all connected in ways we may never fully understand. Every act of service, every moment of choosing to help rather than look away, every decision to go above and beyond creates ripples that extend far beyond what we can see. David Chen thought he was just doing his job that night in 2014. He had no idea he was preserving a voice that would inspire millions, enabling charitable work that would change thousands of lives, and creating a moment that would eventually inspire a national movement to honor first responders. The story of Steve Harvey and David Chen proves that heroes walk among us every day, wearing uniforms we barely notice, answering calls we hope never to make, and saving lives without expecting thanks or recognition. It reminds us that every person we meet might be someone's guardian angel, or might need us to be theirs. If this incredible story of fate, service, and connection moved you, please subscribe to our channel and share this video with others who need to be reminded of the good that exists in our world. Take a moment today to thank a first responder, to learn CPR, or to consider how you might be someone's unexpected angel. Remember to hit the notification bell to hear more extraordinary stories of human connection and the moments that change everything. Because, as this story proves, sometimes the most profound revelations happen when we least expect them. And the people who save us might be standing right in front of us, waiting for the universe to reveal the connection that was there all along.